Welcome to White Wisteria Academy series, Interview with an Expert. The Importance of a Healthy Work-Life Balance, Part 1, The Why with Nicola Boston. Do you struggle to achieve harmony between your professional and private lives? Do you find that you spike in energy, work really hard, and you have none left afterwards? Do you want to sustain your energy? Are you a perfectionist and you feel that it's harming your progress and your efficiency? If so, then listen in, because we will be speaking with Nicola Boston, who is an expert in all of these things and more, and has some really good concrete answers for you. Nicola has been in people and HR space for 16 years. Over the course of her career, she has worked for organizations of all sizes, both the private and the public sectors. Nicola has a Master of Science in Human Resource Management, and she has worked in a number of different disciplines that range from pay and rewards to learning and development, and from employee relations to employer brands. She is specializing in culture and experience, specifically focused on creating engaging workplace environments that enable people to thrive, grow, and first and foremost, to keep healthy. Nicola, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. That was my career flashing up my eyes there.
It's very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah.
Nicola, so tell us, why is achieving a healthy work-life balance important?
Well, I think that, there are obvious reasons, such as better health and well-being, the potential for reducing burnout and stress. That's very clear. In terms of burnout, lots of research, particularly during and post-pandemic, is a real issue in many businesses. So it's a real hot topic at the moment. Personally, I think burnout has existed for a long, long time. So it's got a lot of attention on it, and I think that's a good thing. But fundamentally, we need to look after ourselves better. Another reason is conversely, it actually makes us better at our jobs when we achieve a healthy balance. There is that trap of overworking, but not realizing the potential that it has on our lives, and that is our health, our relationships, and actually our perspective. Sometimes there's a belief of the longer or the harder I work, the more productive I'll be, which actually isn't always the case. How many times have you worked late? Many of us do. It actually can be a bit counterproductive. Things can take longer, you make more mistakes, you become less creative, or you find it difficult to problem solve. And also, if you work in a role where others rely on you, having a balance is actually about it's like putting an oxygen mask on yourself, so you can be there for others. So it's really, really important for those reasons. However, ironically, that striving towards greater balance in itself can actually be stressful. I think it can cause guilt, because we think, oh, I'm not achieving it, and I need to, especially when we compare ourselves to our peers. So it's about letting yourself off the hook. Nothing's perfect. But when we really talk about balance and healthy balance, it's really about finding the right harmony between work and your personal life for you as an individual, not comparing to others. And really, that looks very different for each person. It all depends on our personal circumstances and our relationships to our careers and work. So really, it's about, I would say, knowing where your boundaries are and what potentially tips you into a place that is unhealthy and overwhelming for you. So, that really is what I think is healthy balance. From my experience of working in the people space, it's really actually not about time as much as it's about maintaining your energy and your presence for things that are important to you. And that's both inside and outside of work.
Yeah, I agree. I just really like this word harmony. It really plays so well with this balance, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is there any strategy that would help us recognize if we are under pressure, or kind of realize before it's too late?
When it comes to well-being, for me, it's all about awareness. And you see it time and time again. I think people aren't aware of the impact that working a lot can have on you. It's really easy to drift into unhealthy habits without realizing it, and that can impact various facets of your life. I think a really good thing to do, and it sounds simple, but it's actually hard in reality, is to just stop, take a step back and ask yourself things like, what are your relationships with others like at the moment? Do you feel like you're behaving in ways that perhaps are not healthy, be that physically? I mean, I know I tend to comfort eat a lot when I'm busy, or even in terms of how you interact or speak with others. Sometimes, again, family members, they can take a lot, take a lot out on them if you're perhaps, feeling like that you're tipping into that place. So really recognize actually what is going on before it's too late. The other thing I would say is think about the last time you took annual leave. You'd be really surprised how easy it is to say, oh my goodness, it's been 6 months since I took a day off, and that happens an awful lot. So, keeping on top of it, it's there for a reason. And also, it's not just about annual leave, it's actually when's the last time you took time out to do something for you, something that recharges you. So not necessarily, if recharging you sits on the sofa and that's what you enjoy doing, that's great, watching TV, but it could be if you have a particular exercise or something outside of work, if you're not getting to it, but it recharges you, try and make space for that if you can. The other thing I would, yeah, definitely. But I don't, sometimes I can go that long and then I have to stop myself and go, wow, it's been X amount of time since I've done that. So, it's a good exercise and a good practice to get into. The other thing I would say as well, that I certainly see a lot of in workplaces, people compulsively checking their phone outside of working hours. We've all been guilty of it, and it's, they're addictive phones. But, because you are worried you can't miss an email, but sometimes that can tip again into a very unhealthy place. So if you find yourself doing that and you can't pull yourself away, that email will always be there, so it's not going away.
I'm totally guilty of that as well, the compulsive checking of your phone.
Yeah.
And I have this excuse that I do prefer to know what's going on, but then they really need to be emailing medical monitor at my friend's wedding on a Saturday evening.
Yes. That's exactly it. Yeah. Do I need to be doing this right now? A good question to ask yourself is this helping or harming me? And even down to small things like that, like checking something at a wedding, like, is this helping or harming me? Probably. Yeah. I mean, you decide, but it's ask yourself those questions. Yeah. The other thing I would say is, if you think about kind of stress and pressure like a scale, a very, very wise person told this to me once, and it's always stuck with me. So if 1 is the least amount of stress, as it were, and 10 is a lot, the most, it's very, we probably on our daily, on our day-to-day kind of working time, veer between 1 and 5. Life is full of pressure and stress, that's the way it is. But as soon as you tip into 5, and you'll know what that is for you, it's very easy to go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it happens exponentially. So it's about recognizing where am I on that scale, and what do I need to do before I burn out. And like we said, it's really about sustaining your energy, as much as it is managing your time. And as we've just talked about with phones, we're not designed to be consumed 24/7 with pressure and stress. So we do need downtime to recover. In fact, it's vitally important for a rest, for us to function. And I do like to say, we deserve stress. We don't deserve stress. That would be terrible. We deserve rest. We don't earn it. It's a right that you have. So yeah.
That's a very interesting way of putting it. You mentioned sustaining your energy, and I think it's very important because in the context of work-life balance, we normally focus all on just time management. Do you think that sustaining your energy can be a good indicator of whether or not we are managing our time correctly?
Yeah, I think obviously it's hard to measure, how energized am I, but you know what works for you. An example would be if there are certain tasks or parts of our jobs or our whole jobs that energize us because they're really exciting, and I'll talk about objectives later on, and what you're kind of working towards. But sometimes you can work a 16-hour day because you're doing something really impactful and exciting. The thing is, you can't sustain that every day, even if it is, you know, exciting and impactful. But I think where you are in that mode, that kind of flow mode, that's fine. But you've got to recognize that that isn't sustainable. And that if you continue to do that, you are going to crash. It's a bit like too much sugar.
Yeah.
So, but therefore, if you look at it in terms of energy and not time, it means that you're not restricting your creativity or your flow either. But recognizing that flow state can tip as well very easily. You know, so it's all about awareness for me.
Yeah. Yeah, the state of flow is so nice, right? But you kind of lose the sense of self, and then you're just so in it that, you know, the hours can just go by.
Yeah, exactly.
Nicola, we spoke a lot about a healthy work-life balance and how important it is, but how to achieve it?
Oh, that's a big question. I think everyone's trying to work that out, aren't they? But there are some things that you can definitely do, and it takes time. There's no magic answer to these things. But the first thing is really consider what your boundaries are. I love a boundary, and I think they're super important. And I think in this modern society, some people struggle to set boundaries because we always want to achieve and please. Actually, they're really, really important to your well-being. Again, you know, we talked about there's not a one size fits all in terms of your balance. So it's not a 50-50 thing. If you're motivated by your work and it gives you purpose, then obviously the amount of hours you're willing to dedicate will be higher. But what's the tipping point for you? Where does everything become quite uncomfortable? And it's really about recognizing that setting boundaries is important. It could be so much as I will not look at emails at weddings or, you know, or on a Saturday night, or, you know, and I need to do that. I know some people who will say, you know, and they have the luxury of doing this first thing on a Monday morning, I'm not my best. I need an hour, so don't schedule meetings in for an hour, please. You know, and they'll be really clear on that with people in the politest of ways. So if you know what works for you and what doesn't, and you know you're working in an environment where it's okay to, you know, express that, then I think that's, you know, that's important. If you feel like you can't express it, then there might be other ways that you can achieve that, which, you know, we can talk about.
Yeah, I think also saying that ahead of time kind of gives people time and way to adjust and to kind of work around it. And then, you know, obviously everybody wants to work with you when you are at your best. Nobody wants to be, you know, talking to you when you're kind of like not really awake yet.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that awareness comes back in, right?
Yeah, I mean, most of us, you know, coming off of a weekend, it's a bit like jet lag, really, isn't it? You might need a bit of time just to even just sort your to-do list, so that, and then you're present for the rest of the day. That's fine, but it's all about knowing yourself and what works for you. So yeah,
absolutely. Is there a way that we can try and learn what split works best for us? Are there any tips or exercise that you can share with us to learn this kind of split between the, you know, professional life and private life?
Yeah, and again, there's a little bit of soul searching involved in this, so there's no magic answer. But I would definitely, if you've not done this as an exercise, it's really profound and impacts you across all sort of moments of your life, really. But what are your personal values? You know, companies have values, and we all have them on the walls of all our companies, and we all, you know, live and breathe them. But what are your personal values? You know, a lot of people's, it's family, and spending enough time with our family. For some people, it is that, you know, they're driven by the purpose of their work, and that's fantastic. But just identifying what your values are, it enables you to then start building those boundaries where you can. And also, you know, it's things like, I know my values are my family, and I want to be there, for example, at the school plays. You know, as long as I can do that, then I know that value is being met, for example. Or it might be I need to be at dinner with my children 3 times a week. You know, you can start to then build your life around that, you know, as you can. Personally, one of my values is about creativity. So if I don't achieve some sort of sense of creativity, and I luckily can in my job and outside of work, but if there's, you know, maybe a month goes by and I don't feel like I'm being creative in either of those places, I know that's when my general well-being is going to start to dip. So I've got to find that however I can. So that's one thing I would definitely do. Look at your values. And then when it comes to your work, I think it's about your North Star. Like, why do you get up and go to work every day? What is your kind of work purpose? So same as your values, but in a kind of work sense. I'm not necessarily talking about making X amount of money or, you know, reaching this target, because those things will change. It's literally, like I said, what gets you up in the morning. And then you can start to look at your day, and, you know, we've all had those days where we've been in meetings or been doing tasks where we're like, that has no impact on that North Star that I'm trying to achieve. And so it means you start to be a little bit more shrewd with your time, because you start to realize the value of your time, and are you working towards those things. And obviously working, and do what we said before, working with a sense of purpose means that you'll have more energy in your job. So actually, you know, you can achieve that. And finally, I would say, if you're constantly busy, ask yourself why and what factors might be contributing to that. So these are like little small steps that you can take during the day. So for example, do you find it difficult to say no? You know, I think we're all guilty of that, but if that's a problem for you, you know, maybe that's something you need to look at. Could you be working more efficiently? The amount of meetings we go to sometimes, I do question
Yes.
how productive they are.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's crazy. Google Calendar actually now has a metric so that you can, it shows you how long you've been in meetings. So that's
interesting.
Yes, really impactful. The next thing would be, are you a perfectionist? Are your standards too high? Are there things that you can do sort of good enough, and especially when you're thinking about your objectives? And the final thing, which you know, is the obvious one, but it's still difficult, is can you delegate those tasks to anyone else? Like, do you have to be the person to do that? Are you afraid to ask for help? And, you know, think about why that might be. If that's the case, I suffered from that in the past, and I had a colleague actually say, you don't ask for help and I want to help you. So, you know, take the help if you can get it.
Yeah, definitely. I think these are really good questions. Instead of just being constantly under the pump, kind of stopping for just a little bit and then asking those questions. Maybe we should kind of write them down somewhere so that we can actually see them, just without any effort to kind of, oh, where were those questions? Kind of have them in front of you or on your desk. And then, you know, when you kind of feel you have too much on your plate, just ask those questions. You mentioned being a perfectionist. Do you have any tips on how to manage that? How can a perfectionist utilize this attribute when it suits, and kind of not let it get in the way when it doesn't?
Well, you're speaking to a recovering perfectionist, so I know a lot about this. And even today I had an example where I think somebody was like, it's good enough, you know, you don't need to do any more on that. So yeah, it is, you know, it happens to us all, especially when we're really passionate about our work and you know, and what we do. So it's a tendency for us to veer into that territory. I've actually done a lot of work on myself when it comes to this, and having that sense of perspective is so key. And that's why, you know, having regular breaks and not being so attached to your work all of the time can really help. But as well as knowing your, you know, your goals and your values. So I mean, you see people and they might over perfect something and it has nothing to do with their values. They're just, you know, stuck in that, I've got to get this thing perfect. This email has got to be, you know, top notch. It doesn't always have to be. Another wise person told me a mantra, which is don't let perfectionism get in the way of progress. And it's something that I think I actually had it written as a post-it note once. You know, and if you are spending a lot of time on something, you know, think about what the impact that's having on your goals, your health and your well-being. I have to stop and ask myself that all the time. what I would say as well is that being perfectionist isn't also a stigma. It's, for example, being diligent or highly organized is really, really amazing attributes. When I'm talking about perfection, it's more around when it's becoming a problem and you're not progressing towards your goals. It's absolutely fine to be detail orientated. In fact, I commend you if you are. Perfectionism is a different thing to that. Also, perfectionism, everyone has their reasons for being a perfectionist. So if you think it's negatively impacting you, look out for it in your day-to-day life and examples of where you're doing that. Are you spending a bit too much time on that email? We've all done it, that kind of thing. Also, perfectionism, from what I know of it myself and what I see in others, is that it can actually be a sign of something much deeper going on, not for everybody, but for some. So if it's becoming a real problem for you, you may want to consider speaking to a professional about this, whether that's a coach or another suitably qualified person. But overall, I think it's really about awareness. It's really looking out for it and then asking yourself the questions. That is, the first step towards overcoming if it's a problem for you.
Yeah, sure. I really like your mantra, don't let perfectionism get in the way of progress. It's so true that perfectionism can be sometimes absolutely paralyzing, preventing us from doing something. I sometimes ask myself, is it better to constantly keep improving it, or can I release and then improve it later, or, reiterate? Or does it have to be perfect, or does it have to be done? So yeah, because sometimes those may be self-exclusionary.
Yeah, the other thing I would say about that is that sometimes it can be born out of fear. It's easy to keep working on something and just get it out, especially if it's something you really care about. So there are a whole myriad of reasons why people perfect things.
Absolutely. Nicola, for those of us who work from home, do you have any tips on how to introduce separation between work and personal life when those two actually share the same physical space?
Yeah, that's a big one, especially for at the moment. It really, really is. It's so interesting, the difference to work behaviors we're seeing. So obviously the remote revolution is, it's changing everything. It's actually improving people's well-being in a lot of cases, but also it's having a detrimental effect in others. I know many people that have reconfigured their lives and their homes to accommodate remote working. I think whatever your situation, separation is a really, really good thing on all different levels. You need to rest and recuperate, and it's vital for your health and your productivity. Really, it's about doing lots of practical things. So, and they're quite obvious things, but sometimes it's easy to get into traps and realizing, it's been this amount of time since I've done this thing. So the first thing, if you can, is to carve out a working space that's away from your living space. That's the ideal. A lot of my friends' guest bedrooms are now no longer there, so don't have guests. They're now offices. But that's not always possible for everybody, particularly if you live in London, I know from experience. So if you can't have that, then if you are working your dining room table, at least try and pack everything away. Even if it's for the weekend, out of sight, out of mind, to get that separation. You don't want to be reminded of work all of the time. And then in your day-to-day, if you're Zoom, back to back on Zoom calls, which we've all experienced and still experience, try and build some time in between, even if it's to take a walk or make a coffee. The interesting thing about remote working is that we're looking at a screen much longer probably than we did before. So you must step away from that screen if you can. I would say with meetings, it's temptation. I don't know if Google does this. It does default hour.
Yes.
Yeah, and I try and reduce it to 45 minutes. That would be the dream. 15 minutes, wouldn't it? Yeah, but 45 minutes so that you can have a little bit of space. And being really direct in that meeting and getting to the objectives of that meeting.
Absolutely.
By doing it. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for people who get invited to these meetings and then, the organizer actually does keep it for 1 hour? Is there any way to communicate that you need that break, or is it just up to them then, unfortunately?
Again, it's about your boundaries, and that I think it's completely reasonable to say, I'm really sorry, I'm back to back, can we finish 10 minutes early? Of course it depends on the agenda and what you're trying to get through, but particularly where, I don't know if you have this, you're invited to meetings and you don't quite know why you're why you're there. So I think it's, making it really clear at the start, and you can do it in a way that's polite, but what you're saying is, we're all human. I can't function back-to-back meetings. So I think that's perfectly reasonable. Obviously, it depends on the audience and who's there. But if you can try and do that for at least a couple of the meetings in your day, then you're doing better than you would otherwise.
Yeah, and it will make a huge difference. And I think sometimes people just need to hear it, that it's okay to say it, it's okay to communicate it. We're only humans, we're not machines, so it's all okay.
And what you'll find is actually that if you do it, someone else will then say, oh, I need to as well. So, if be brave.
Yeah, be the trendsetter.
Yes.
Nicola, thank you so much for all of your amazing knowledge and tips. If people want to connect with you, where can we find you?
Normally LinkedIn. The good old LinkedIn is the perfect place. So yeah.
Just search for Nicola Boston on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, how does this apply to a clinical research associate role? I hope that my session with Nicola gave you insight and lots of practical tips that you can implement right away. As Nicola was saying, it is very important to build a healthy work-life balance because it actually makes you better at your job. When you are tired, it's so much harder to focus. Your problem solving is suffering. You are not creative in finding solutions. Taking care of healthy work-life balance will definitely improve your productivity. Interestingly, as Nicola was saying, self-awareness is really key, and knowing what balance will work for you, because what will work for you may be something completely different to other people. Nicola spoke about a very interesting strategy to help us recognize when we are under pressure and when we need a break. Another interesting point was that when you are working from home and you share the same space in your personal life and in your professional life, building that separation is very important. You can do a couple of things. For example, as Nicola was saying, you can, for example, pack up after the week of work, even if it's just for the weekend. You can build a physical separation so that you're not working and living in the exact same space. Maybe it's after work going for a short walk so that when you come back, you know that you're after work and you finished. It's definitely worth switching off after your working day. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that this was useful to you and you took away some tips that you can implement. You can find more tips in our monthly newsletter, so make sure that you sign up on our website, www.whitewistariaacademy.com, and also follow us on social media. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at White Wisteria Academy. Thank you so much and speak to you soon.